everyone, Professor McKinney here. I'm here at Fletcher Hall at the UTC College of Business. I hope you've enjoyed reading the text this week. I have a cool upcoming video for you where we talk about culture, so let's dive into it.
Well, hello, Juliana. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Yeah, thank you for being willing to talk to myself and my students about your work experience and where you currently live at and kind of some of the things that you've experienced.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, really appreciate it.
yeah, no problem.
Um, so I guess kind of I have a couple questions, but the first one is I was going to see if you could tell us, who you are, where you live and work at, and what you do.
Those are good questions. I actually remember being in a sauna and I walked into the sauna. I didn't know anyone, and these two people were talking and they just said, "So, who are you?" And I actually didn't know how to answer. So, this is good because now I'm a little bit more prepared. But my name is Juliana and I'm originally from Boulder, Colorado. Um, yeah, I have kind of an interesting work background. I graduated many years ago from a bachelor program at the University of Boulder. And I went into the tech industry and I was a project manager for like 6 years or something. And then eventually, that changed with tech. Our company got bought and everybody got laid off. And so I used the opportunity to travel for a while. And then afterwards, I became a guide with a company that does hiking and biking trips for American tourists. So that was kind of fun. I still do it, maybe not as intensely as I used to. But maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I visited my friends in Norway, in Oslo. And I had kind of been looking for a place. It's one thing to travel. It's a different thing to live in a country and work in a country. I thought, man, this place is really awesome. I want to figure out how to live in Norway. So I applied to a master's program in 2019. And then in 2020, that was not going to happen. They just weren't keen to have anyone come over at that point. I applied again the next year and got in. And yeah, I moved here in 2021 in a small town in Norway called Bø. It's a B with an O with a slash through it, and you pronounce it Bø. Yeah. I've been here ever since. So I graduated in June. Yeah, I graduated in June and have kind of worked with a company while I wrote my master's thesis. And then, now I still live here some months later. So, yeah,
Awesome.
That's kind of my background.
Cool. So you're in Norway. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the city because I know I'm going to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And so yeah, only 2 years going from the United States to Norway. So I love that, just jumping in and doing it. Right. I
Yeah.
think sometimes it just takes that leap of courage. So
But I kind of feel like some people ask me what's going on in the US, and I'm genuinely not sure. I feel a bit like I'm in my world here, and I'm not really sure what's happening back at home, how things have changed or stayed the same. So you kind of get in your little bubble wherever you go, and it becomes your world.
yeah. Okay. Well, the next question I have is, I was going to see if you could talk a little bit about culture in the workplace or business mannerisms, specifically in Norway.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the things that you learned the hard way, or, just in general, like, business work culture.
Yeah. So I think I also forgot to say kind of what I've done. So it was last year and I had to write a master's thesis, and I was really trying to partner with a company kind of to do what you've talked about, get a little bit of an insight into the culture, see what the company was like. And it's really nice actually to partner with someone to write your thesis. You can kind of have some something that's applicable to the real world instead of like, I'm theorizing this or I'm theorizing that. So I found this research institution in Western Norway. I'm down in this area called Telemark, which actually is famous for telemark skiing. They're up in the west in an area called Vestland. So they invited me to write a master's thesis about this bigger project they were doing about this glacier that is changing very fast up nearby. Jostedalsbreen is the biggest ice sheet in mainland Europe, not on islands. Wow. So I kind of worked with them a little bit for my thesis, and then I got a job with them this summer doing research. Now I work with them doing research type work. We're writing an article, and I also work for the university that I went to. So yeah, let's see. The first thing, it was my first time kind of entering a Norwegian workplace. And I was just there as a student, but very, very, very welcoming. I think once you're in, you are really welcomed, and that is really nice. Everyone introduced themselves to me and they let me do a presentation. It's kind of a lot of time to ask. People are doing a lot of different things. These are researchers who are working on these like multi-year projects, but just really kind. So that was something that I was like, this is kind of shocking. And then I think like the other two things that really stood out. First one that I learned kind of the hard way, everybody has lunch at 11:30. And when they say, we have lunch at 11:30, that's not like a hint. That's, like we will see you up there at 11:30. You're going to eat lunch with us. And I think there was one time I'm like, I can't really make it. And they're like, okay, what's up with this girl? But, it's kind of like a small community. There's 5 million people in Norway. Well, 5.3 actually. A lot of the towns and areas are quite small. Like the town I live in is 5,000 people. The place that I go to, up in the west that I talked about, maybe that's like 10,000 people. But a lot of people know each other, and at a workplace, you kind of stay tight knit with each other. So I really felt that when I was there, and I really kind of realized. I was looking at this group called Americans in Norway, and they're actually talking about mannerisms. And they said, when they say, oh yes, lunch is at 11:30, you join them for lunch. You don't make your own lunch. So that was a shock.
Does everyone go to lunch together, or is it okay?
Yeah, everyone goes to lunch together. Everyone kind of sits down and chats, and the director sits with everyone. The director has a office just like everyone else. It's a really flat structure, so it's not like you feel intimidated by anyone. Again, really welcomed. Like, she made a point of just saying hi to me, and like, wow, that's nice. Everyone has a very simple lunch. It's really, well, not everyone, but almost everyone has a simple lunch. It's really common just to have a piece of bread with some slices of cheese. My roommate in Norway, I thought it was crazy at the time. Now I know it's completely culturally normal, but he had 2 slices of bread with duck fat scraped on it every morning. He would take the frozen bread, put the duck fat on it with some pickles, and then he loved it. His bread would unfreeze during the day, and that's what he would eat. And that's totally normal, just kind of simple meals. Yeah. And I was here like trying to make a salad and heat up potatoes, like a 3-course meal. Or like, wow, that's really fancy. So yeah, that was also something maybe that stuck out to me, because that would not happen. I'm thinking back to my tech industry job where we had lunch served to us, like burgers or tacos or something. And it's a lot more simple. It's a lot more, it's a lot more simple.
Yeah. Bread and duck fat.
Sometimes cheese. I've never tried the duck fat. I was just like, I'm not sure I can taste that, but I think it's kind of like a peanut butter and jelly for Americans. It's just really something standard you grow up with.
Yeah. One, so you mentioned kind of like how organizations are flat, right?
Hmm.
And basically, it doesn't necessarily matter who you are in the organization. Everyone's welcoming and friendly.
Yeah.
Um, so I know with some places I've talked to, like managers are managing like from their office, and other times they're like actively working alongside the
Hmm.
people. Can you kind of talk about that? Like when the manager is working with uh,
Yeah.
the staff, what does that look like?
Yeah. So it's interesting for me because I got this job with this research institute, and they're quite well known. They do a lot of good work. I thought it was really cool that they were like, "Hey, can you help us with this project?" But um, they just really seem to value your opinion, even if you're someone junior. And really, I'd say trust maybe more than someone else would. I've never felt really like so skeptical, but um, or I've never felt that someone was skeptical towards me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, are you sure you did this right? We could have done this better. So there's not a ton of like criticism. Um, it is something actually kind of worth knowing in Norway that there is a concept called janteloven. And it means that no one, you're brought up with this as a kid if you grow up in Norway. You're neither better nor worse than any other person. So no one person is that much greater than someone else or that much worse. And if someone is struggling, you shouldn't tell them, oh, you're struggling, like you're doing a bad job, but help them figure out how to do a better job. That is something I think kind of wild to me, honestly, something really different.
Yeah.
And so there isn't so much of a reaction of kind of, did you do this right? Are you sure? Sometimes, if you say something really outlandish, I think they would be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But it's maybe
Yeah.
more polite than it could be. Like, I think in the tech industry, you move so fast, you have to do fast things. And I definitely had people be like, oh, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're not going to do this. I think you're wrong. And
Yeah.
there's something to say for that. You can get stuff done really fast. But if you move too fast with that and you don't feel kind of welcomed, or you don't feel like if you're new or something, that can be really intimidating. And that can be difficult sometimes as well. Sometimes easier, sometimes difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it all has its pros and its cons, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
like I think, well, in the United States, I think a lot of times we're really productive at stuff, but we're also
Yeah.
very direct at times, and uh, other cultures don't always take it the best way, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So, okay. Cool. Well, is there anything else, I guess, about Norway with mannerisms or culture, or anything that kind of sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, I think, things can sometimes move slower here than you would expect in the US. I think like stability is really prioritized, longevity is really prioritized. So, if someone said, oh, I just want to get a job for a year to a Norwegian employer, that might be like a big red flag. They kind of feel like, I'm investing in you, you're investing in me, that type of thing. A lot of people, I mean, some of their closest friends are at work. And I think like I kind of noticed at different working environments, like it's kind of like these little communities. I mean, people know a lot about their personal lives sometimes. They'll have meals together, do outdoors things together. So it can be really kind of like this tight knit little beehive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely different from the US, because some of these companies I'm in, sometimes I would never meet everyone. There'd just be so many people like, oh, this
Yeah.
person's coming from the UK or something. Like, oh, I didn't even know we had a UK branch or something,
And don't ask anyone about their personal lives because you don't want to offend them
Yeah.
or go into their
Yeah.
privacy or whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
completely different culture. So,
Yeah.
um,
But I think
okay.
like the time view maybe of thinking, really getting to know someone, and you do kind of feel a bit like an outsider for a while here, but you just kind of have to let it be and not press it. And as you continue on, you show someone, yeah, I'm trustworthy. I can be trustworthy to make this deadline. I can be trustworthy to have good ideas, be a good person that you want to work with. And I think that's what really matters. But I'm used to things moving faster. So definitely sometimes like, oh my gosh, Norway, can we move it along a little faster? And sometimes yes, and many times no. You just have to be patient. It's kind of like a long-term perspective, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so the last question I have is, do you have any advice for any of my students if they were looking for working internationally or maybe even specifically in Norway?
Yeah. I mean, I always think like Norway's a great place to do further education. I don't know if you teach a bachelor or master's program. Is it a bachelor?
Well, as of right now, it's bachelor's, but sometimes they can change us around.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, a really good way to get a taste of what the country was like was doing my master's here. So I think it kind of gives you a lot of ways to see what's around you, go to different places. And then, writing a master's thesis is a really nice way to talk to an actual company or person. And that's a really good way to get a job. I think for Americans, it can be kind of hard if you are just putting in your application into a line. Norwegian, to speak the language, is very highly prioritized. So it's sometimes really hard to get a job without learning Norwegian. So learning Norwegian, I mean, if you put the time and effort in, I mean, that would be really impressive. But you never know. I just think always like keep your eye open for different jobs. We use a marketplace here called Finn. So that's a really good place to look for jobs. Okay. Maybe like getting to know a certain company. If you're really interested in a certain company, that would be a really good way, and try and make some contacts. Because once you know someone, that really kind of opens some doors. But I think sometimes like the blind applying could be really challenging. Yeah, but you never know. I mean, like, don't let your dreams be dreams. And then, for any students who do a master's, PhDs here are kind of considered jobs. So it's basically like a job for 3 years. They're well paid. You make quite a lot of money actually as a PhD student. And some of them are really, really interesting, and they love international students. And I'll also say like master's programs, they're always trying to get international students. It's kind of this nice transition where you learn a little bit about the culture, maybe you learn the language, and then you can kind of transition into a job. Whereas it might be kind of intense actually to just move here and go into a job, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
So do you know Norwegian?
I speak some. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So cool. I guess, do you have any, if someone was to go to Norway or try to, what are like some basic phrases that may be good for them to know?
Let's see. I mean, for some time I learned some phrases, and I would say, I speak Norwegian. Jeg snakker norsk. And then they would start, oh wait, I can't understand. So you could say, I understand a little bit of Norwegian. Jeg forstår litt norsk. You could say, I come from the US. Jeg kommer fra USA. And a lot of people are like, oh, the US, I have relatives there. I've always wanted to go, or I've been. There's like a really tight connection with Norway and the US, actually.
Okay.
Norway got a little abandoned by Sweden, and it broke away from Denmark. So the Scandinavian countries, they're close, definitely, but Norway has a little bit of a fascination with the US. It's yeah,
that would make it easier.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
You could say so many different things, but there's so many fun little videos and stuff. I think on Instagram, they have like a whole series of what to say when you're traveling. And that that can make a really big difference. You can really feel someone warm up to you when you just know a little bit of Norwegian. Yeah. Even if you just visit.
Yeah, I have a good friend from Norway, and they showed me a video about the Norwegian alphabet. That was on YouTube, and it was hilarious. So it was trying to help Americans with the Norwegian alphabet, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna struggle. So
I mean, it took me like 6 months to maybe start to understand a little bit, and sometimes people would I would get used to what they would say to me in the grocery stores, and then someone would say something different. I'd be like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
But the different sounds are really, it makes it challenging. And I moved here during COVID too, so everyone was wearing masks sometimes. Well, no, at first we weren't wearing masks, and then we were. But it's really challenging if you can't hear someone so well, and just don't know the language. Like, I have no idea what you just said.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated everything you had to say about your experience with moving to Norway and experiencing the culture and workplace, and going to lunch at 11:30 and duck fat, I think was what it was. So yeah, no, I've appreciated it, and thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah, hope it's a good and interesting session. Maybe it piques someone's interest. So that would be really cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and have a great rest of the evening. Okay.
Thanks. See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.